Hello and welcome to another edition of This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive week-to-week look all season long into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside head coach Zach Hilbers on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. The Lakers coming off a big win on the road in Oxford, going into Northern Oakland County. Your final OAA Red Division matchup of the year, and important to end OAA Red Division play against a really solid Oxford team that, as you said last week, has been getting better every single year. Their skilled players in particular are improving on a week-to-week basis, and they didn't make it an easy matchup, but your team took care of business. What was the big difference maker between Clarkston and Oxford that made Oxford a little bit less of a tough opponent in the end than Clarkston?
Yeah, they're a really good team. They're really tough kids and everything, but for us, it was really about limiting the mistakes we made against Clarkston. So a big part of that was trying to simplify things for the kids. We didn't want them out there thinking too much, made it a little bit easier rules in terms of their alignment, their assignment, really defensively and offensively, and just let them go out there and just play confidently, knowing what they were supposed to do. And it sure seemed to work, at least for that week. It was a lot of fun, and it was a great game.
And it seemed like, particularly on the offensive side in the rushing game, was where there was a stark difference in the game plan between last week and this past week with Oxford, particularly getting the football in the hands of the quarterback, Rick Nance, who had over 80 yards rushing, his best rushing game of the season, 2 rushing touchdowns, which is nearly as many as he had all last season, and Brandon Davis-Swain, who had over 50 yards on the ground, as well as a rushing touchdown. Was that something that was part of that design to simplify your game plan going into Oxford?
Yeah, we know, or at least we think we're at our best when our quarterback runs part of our run game. And week 2, early on against Groves, Rick took a kind of a weird shot to his knee, and he was okay and obviously able to play through it, but it really kind of hampered his mobility quite a bit. So we had been protecting him a little bit with our play calling, and we got to the point watching him play against Clarkston where he looked like he had his mobility and his confidence back. So we kind of tried to reintroduce some of that into our game plan and into our play calls, and he looked great and getting the ball to Brandon out there. A lot of it was short yardage, and he ended up popping that one long one, which was kind of cool. But that was definitely part of what we wanted to do.
It's no secret in the OAA and high school football at every level, your team's not the only team watching film. Clearly, Oxford had been watching the use of motion before the snap from both Clarkston and Rochester Adams. They really threw that into the fold with Jack Hendricks at quarterback and having Luke Johnson as a really dynamic running back in that offense last week. What was your answer to those 2 really dynamic young players that played really well in that loss on Friday?
Yeah, those are both 2 really good players. I talked to them both in the handshake lines and told them I thought they were tough as nails, and they run hard and they just really go out there and compete. But to answer your question on the motion, a lot of that goes back to we simplifying the rules for our defense and in terms of where we're going to line up and how we're going to react to different formations, because what Oxford will do is they'll flip their tight end in their wing, and then they'll motion people and change their strength multiple times before they even snap the ball. And we thought that, if we threw too much at the kids in terms of our rules and our assignments, that can get confusing. When you think you know your job and then 2 or 3 things change in a matter of 5 seconds and then they snap the ball, it's, during that time you're processing, a lot's going on. So part of the simplification process was knowing that that's what they want to do and really just keeping it easier for our guys. So, did our jobs change, but not too drastically.
And that showed up in the execution of that game plan defensively. We think about that play where they were going for it on 4th and 2. They're marching into positive territory. Luke Johnson's going to get the football, and we saw on that play a big stop in the backfield on Luke Johnson, preventing them from getting that first down. And that simplification definitely played into a role in the front 7, but also in the secondary too. For the second consecutive week, John Edison had not 1 but 2 interceptions last week, his second consecutive week, with a pick. And so we're getting more guys also involved on the defensive side, making critical plays. How big has it been to have guys like Will Espy and guys like Jonathan Edison coming in and playing not only good football in coverage, but making plays now at this point in the season too?
Yeah, I'm really proud of those 2 in particular. They've had some chances early in the year to play in spurts, but it was never really consistent. That's tough for a kid to kind of keep their head in the game and keep, their focus on the grind and their job and getting better each week when they're not seeing immediate results. But both of them really were ready when their opportunity was called. Will a couple weeks earlier, and Jonathan's been, against Clarkston and against Oxford, and played a little bit against Chippewa Valley. And every time he's kind of stepped up and answered. So, we told him, the more you do that, man, the more we got to keep you on the field. And he's earned that. And I'm really happy for him and him, both of them, and really all the kids that got a chance to get out there and show what they can do.
Also, what played a factor in that game at Oxford on Friday was the weather. It got progressively more severe as the game went on, a little bit of a drizzle in the first half. But by the time you're going out there near the end of the first half and into the second half, that rain is pouring, it is cooler, it is windy. How much of a factor did that play in your game plan evolving over the course of that Friday night?
Well, luckily, part of our goal was to get an early lead, knowing that that weather might be coming. And whether it came or not, we knew that if it did and we had the lead, that would put them in a much tougher position. And we think it did. And we were able to have a couple really long drives and put the game away where kind of left them behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, it really spelled a bit of toughness for both of those teams to be able to execute on Friday night given the conditions. Oxford content to run the football, but a team that loves to spread their offense out typically and get guys down their depth chart and in the receiving core involved heavily. Weren't able to do that on Friday night, and both these teams turning over the football a couple of times, and that in part due to the wet conditions on Friday night. Taken away from that Oxford game, a blowout victory to end OAA Red Division play. A few tough games coming up as you head into playoff time. Southfield A&T coming to town on Friday night at 7 o'clock at Lakers Stadium. And of course, we'll have our live coverage on Civic Center TV. What lessons did your team learn, in particular the coaching staff, last week, and what will you take from that game into these last couple weeks of the regular season?
Well, I guess just the overall idea that sometimes more or less is more, you know what I mean, for what we throw at the kids. Because, you can get really complex, but if they don't understand it, then what's it doing for you? You're only causing some harm. Now, we can't go out there and do the exact same things on either side of the ball against Southfield and just expect it to work. So we have to, I guess, make sure that, we're fresh and we're new this week in terms of how we're going to attack them. But, the underlying theme can still be the same, that we got to keep it simple, let our kids go out there, just put them in the right spots and let them go play.
Lakers took care of business against a really good Oxford team on Friday night. All these teams in the OAA Red Division, tough to beat on any given Friday night. Now they got another challenge. The OAA White Division, Southfield A&T Warriors coming to town on Friday night, coming in 7-0 in their OAA White Division crossover here at the Swamp. Our live coverage will begin with This Week in Laker Football at 6 o'clock, Laker pregame show at 6:30, and kickoff at 7 o'clock at West Bloomfield High School in the Swamp. We'll take a break. On the other side, we'll talk to one of the players, and then later on, Coach Hilbers will rejoin us, and we'll talk about this week's big matchup against Southfield A&T. Stay with us on This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Nance takes a snap, good pocket, looking, rolls forward, gets met by a defender, escapes, throws it deep down the field, and caught at the 40-yard line, on his feet, down to the 30-yard line. And what a recovery for Rick Nance and his senior tight end, Brandon Davis Swain.
Missed one of our live broadcasts or one of your local municipal meetings? Check it out online at civiccentertv.com. Every meeting, show, and interview on demand. Thank you for watching and listening to Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Watch West Bloomfield Lakers football all season long on 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Join Tyler Kieft and Matt Catoni each week for live, in-depth, and exclusive coverage before, during, and after the big game. It's your local high school football team on the road and in your backyard on your home for West Bloomfield Laker football, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. This is Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. On cable and the radio. On the web too, and on social media. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive week-to-week look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team all across the 2023 season. I'm Tyler Kieft, joined now by Jonathan Edison, junior cornerback for the West Bloomfield Lakers. And 2 consecutive weeks, 2 consecutive starts for you, your first 2 starts of your varsity career, and already having a big impact. A couple of interceptions last week at Oxford and an interception the week before at Clarkston. How excited are you after a very strong first 2 weeks in the starting lineup?
It's very exciting. Just go out there and make plays. It's what you prepare for. It's what you strive for, what you kind of dream about and stuff. So it's really exciting.
In terms of preparation, was there anything different for you, coming into these last two games, knowing you were starting versus preparing for coming in certain situations within that game plan against other teams throughout the season?
Not really. Just keep working your technique, keep doing what you're doing. I've been, coming in every week, just trying to get better. So that was really the focus of these past couple of weeks, just keep getting better and be ready for the opportunity.
And John, it's your first season on the varsity squad, and this team is chock full of talent in all three phases of the game. How does that help you in your development to be able to, talk with guys like Jameer and Bryce who are going to D1 schools, including a Big Ten school for Jameer in UCLA and for Bryce going into some action next fall at Central Michigan, and also be able to communicate with guys like Brandon Davis-Swain, and on the offensive side, some of those guys over the last few years like Samaj Morgan, about their experiences, about their development, and help that grow your game?
Go learning from those guys is great because they're where you want to be essentially, and competing with everybody in practice. We got a lot of talent on the squad, so just learning from the seniors because they're where I want to be at pretty much, and just competing with all the competition at my position just helps me get better.
This week, the Lakers will be taking on Southfield A&T, 7 o'clock kickoff on Friday night at West Bloomfield High School. And that's a big matchup. Great wide receiving core in Southfield A&T and an even better quarterback in Zeke Marshall, one of the best in the state of Michigan. So does that add a little bit of extra excitement coming into Friday night, knowing you're going up against the best of the best this week? And if you're able to take care of business against Southfield A&T, you can compete with anybody in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a lot of excitement coming into this week. Just getting better. It's a rivalry week, so it's a big thing in the school and it's a big thing with the team. So it just kind of motivates me to keep going harder and keep getting better so I could perform this week.
Those last couple weeks, very exciting interceptions against Oxford and against Clarkston over the last 2 weeks. You've taken to social media. You're really using that on your sort of recruiting trail and build that name for you nationally with some of your favorites like Charles Woodson and Will Johnson and Deion Sanders. So, with that, John, as we're looking at your career going forward at West Bloomfield High School and you continuing to build your game as a cornerback, who are some of the players at the next level, past and present, college and pro, that maybe you look up to and maybe look to model your game after?
Definitely Will Johnson. I like him, his game. Tre'Davious White in the NFL, he plays for the Bills. He's a really good player. I watch his film a lot, pick certain things that he does and just model my game after. Now, obviously, the two seniors that I got ahead of me, Jameer and Bryce, two really good players. So there's a lot of stuff to, learn from them.
Jonathan has.
Yeah, that's it.
Jonathan Edison with us, junior cornerback for the West Bloomfield Lakers on This Week in Laker Football. You can tune in to every West Bloomfield Laker football game on civiccentertv.com/Lakersports. Listen on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM, and of course on cable television locally on Civic Center TV. And you're a 4.0 student, great in the classroom and outside of the classroom on the football field. Preparation is a huge part of being ready for the game on Friday, especially as you're going up against a variety of different offensive schemes, a variety of different levels of talent at the quarterback position and at those skill positions, both of which you got to have a big focus on. And for cornerbacks, for defensive backs, they got to have that full field vision to be able to play both in coverage and man-to-man, but also to be able to provide support. So in terms of preparation, what are some of your focal points week to week, and what are you looking to improve on going forward this season and into your senior year?
I think my preparation, just focusing on my alignment, assignment, knowing what I got to do coming into every play, knowing all the different coverages, stuff like that, just focusing on that. I think just preparation for my senior year, just, keep getting better and keep doing what I'm doing. Obviously it's working, so just keep doing it and keep getting better.
Big few weeks for Jonathan Edison, looking for a few more big weeks as the Lakers wrap up their season. 2 more regular season games ahead. Southfield A&T this week Friday. Next week the Lakers go back on the road to Oak Park for their final regular season game. Then it's on to playoff time. Jonathan, any last thoughts about this season or going forward and your goals and motivation for the rest of this year?
Make it as far as we can in the playoffs. And, yeah, that's it.
Full team effort from the defensive backs, the defensive scheme all together as well. It's all three phases, and Jonathan Edison and other young guys on this team in their junior year already having big impacts, especially now as the season is coming to a close. We'll have a short break on This Week in Laker Football. On the other side, Coach Hilbers will rejoin us. We'll preview this week's big rivalry matchup between the West Bloomfield Lakers and Southfield A&T. Senior night on Friday at WB. Kickoff at 7 o'clock. Our coverage will begin with this show, This Week in Laker Football, at 6 o'clock. The Laker pregame show with Matt Catoni and I at 6:30. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a few moments on This Week in Laker Football. Hendricks under center, one man in the backfield along with him. Moves the man out in motion. Hendricks takes the snap, getting some pressure, throws to his left side, down the field, and is picked off. Once again, Jonathan Edison, the young man, the junior, his first year on the varsity squad, not one, but two consecutive games with an interception.
Want to enjoy Civic Center TV on your social media? Follow us on Twitter at Civic Center TV. Get notified when we upload one of our interviews, full episodes, and more. Thank you for watching and listening to Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
My dad and my grandfather are officials. I've grown up around officials and seeing how much they enjoy being part of the games. As a student athlete, I've always appreciated the people out there who are willing to give back to the kids. The Legacy program lets me officiate while I'm still in high school, working younger kids' games. Officiating gives me a better understanding of the game. I get to make some pretty good money for a high school kid, and I even get to spend some quality time with my dad. There's help wanted. Just whistle.
This is Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. On cable and the radio. On the web too, and on social media. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Your exclusive look into West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football all week long, all season long. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside head coach Zach Hilbers. The Lakers taking care of business last week, a big victory on the road against Oxford. Now you're coming home, senior night, your final home game of the regular season, and a big matchup. Southfield A&T coming in. These are two teams in southeastern Michigan that were really looked at as some of the power players in Division I coming into this season. You're coming in 5-2. They're coming in 7-0. And this Southfield A&T team, much like yours, loaded with talent. And these last 3 weeks, they have been on a tear, 111 points to 13 over their last three opponents. What are you looking at with this Southfield A&T team as they come in on Friday night on a tear and on a win streak of 7 games?
Well, yeah, they're really good. They're really talented. But I just told the kids in our meeting, like, look, they're really good. We know they're really good, but I think we're pretty good too. And it's always a pretty emotional game for them. A lot of them have grown up together playing either on the same little league teams or against each other for what's probably been 7-8 years in a row. You know what I mean? And it's always an anticipated matchup because of those factors, and we know it's going to be a competitive game. We just hope that we come out on top.
We see those games like Clarkston and West Bloomfield that's got that kind of Michigan versus Michigan State rivalry feel at the high school level. This is kind of another one of those with North Farmington or with Farmington that also comes into the fold, where those personal relationships and that just friendly competition that plays a role in it. But you mentioned that they're loaded with talent. They got a blue chip quarterback in Zeke Marshall who's going to be going on to Kansas next fall. They got a lot of talent at the skill positions and in all three phases. But as you said, so does this team. How does that help you get ready, particularly in practice when you're getting your Jimmies and Joes ready for theirs?
Well, I guess we know that for as good as they are, that it's nothing that we've never seen before. You know what I mean? Because there's sometimes you play against a team and you're like, we don't have anybody like that, and it's hard to prepare for somebody like that. You know, like I think back to Clarkston when they would have all these, 4 D1 linemen they would throw out there, and it's like, yeah, we might have 1 or 2, but like it's really difficult to prepare for. They have an unbelievable dynamic quarterback, but we think ours is pretty good too. They have some great receivers, but we think ours are pretty good too. So we've seen, now obviously not the same players, but we've seen people of that caliber, and we think we've played a really tough schedule, and it's hopefully prepared us to the point where we can go out there and get a win on Friday.
That being said, a lot of this team coming in from Southfield A&T, they are upperclassmen, particularly seniors, guys that were on that varsity squad a year ago or have been for several years at this point. Does that help from a coaching standpoint, from a game planning standpoint, to be able to see that progression and that development over the years, having seen them last season playing at a high level and then been watching their film from this season?
Yeah, I would say it does. It definitely helps. But, you can also, when you look at a kid like Isaiah Marshall, their quarterback, we've started as a freshman against us. We've seen him for 3-4 years now, but we've seen him get better too. I heard about the kid in 7th grade, and he's lived up to pretty much everything that was thrown at him when he was really young, which is really difficult and impressive to do, and give him credit. But yeah, he's definitely gotten better too. He hasn't plateaued or anything. He's worked on his body. He's faster. He can always throw the ball. He's gotten bigger and stronger. So.
And the Lakers have come into seasons or throughout seasons in the past been highly ranked, been highly touted as one of the best teams in the state or the best team in the state, given the talent, given the performance. They've been in the position the Southfield A&T team is in. Knowing that position, knowing the pressure that comes along with it, knowing what it takes to be beaten by a team at that level and to beat a team at that level, does that help your guys personally get prepared for a game like this, or at the very least help those younger guys that haven't been in a juggernaut versus juggernaut matchup like this on Friday night?
Yeah, I think the experience definitely helps, but I don't know how much the rankings play into it for our kids, because I think, if we were both 0-7, we would get up for this game. Obviously, it hasn't happened either way in the last few years. We've been, pretty successful programs, but, no matter what the records are, I think we'd be ready to go. And so just the fact that, we're 5-2, they're 7-0, just kind of adds to it.
This time of the year, playoff points play a factor also, especially when you're going up against an undefeated team. They've had a tough schedule in their own right, played a lot of really good teams and beaten a lot of really good teams. A win on Friday night could be huge for a few weeks down the road. How much of a motivator is that for your team looking toward playoff time, knowing you're likely going to be playing on Friday nights beyond the end of this regular season?
I would say it definitely is for us as a staff, because we're just trying to fight to make sure our kids get a couple home games in the playoffs. We want to get to the playoffs, get to that finish line, and then, if we're there, we want to be able to play here. And winning on Friday would go a long ways toward helping that happen. Whereas, if it doesn't go our way on Friday night, we're kind of leaving it up to chance, and whatever we get, we get.
Zach Hilbers with us, the head coach of the West Bloomfield Lakers, 5-2 after last week's win at Oxford, and Southfield A&T after their win last week against Farmington, coming in 7-0. They've won 3 consecutive games by a margin of 111-13. 2 out of those 3 were shutouts, with the 13 points all coming from Rochester a week ago. So as you get your kids ready for this game, they have those personal relationships, that hype behind this game, all eyes on Oakland County and on West Bloomfield High School on Friday night for that matchup. How do you keep them focused at the task at hand, or is that something that's more of a internal self-motivation from the players themselves?
I think it's just taking each day, day by day, period by period. So today, we're going to install our game plan, and that's all we're worried about. This is what we're doing this week. And, and tomorrow we're going to run through all our offensive stuff. Wednesday, we're going to run through all our defensive stuff. And we have a routine that we believe in, and we got to stick to that because obviously it's easy to look ahead to Friday and get excited about it, and you probably should. But if we're focused on Friday, we're not going to be focused on getting better throughout the week, and that's the most important thing.
As a former player at West Bloomfield High School, an alum yourself, a longtime coach on this staff, and knowing what that senior night environment feels like as a player, coming into this game, having that environment, just the third and the final home game, potentially the last home game Lakers could see in this season, how much of an extra motivator is that? How much of an extra boost does that give the morale of this team coming home for this big of a matchup on senior night and being able to give their seniors one heck of a farewell if they're able to beat Southfield A&T on Friday?
Yeah, it certainly would be a great send-off if we can get the job done. I don't know how much extra motivation they really needed for this week, but they have it, You're right, they might be the last time a lot of these kids go out there and play on this field. So, whatever happens, we just hope that they're out there giving it their best.
Lakers taking on Southfield A&T, the Warriors from the OAA Red Division, coming to town Friday night, 7 o'clock kickoff. We'll have the game live for you on Civic Center TV, on 89.3 Lakes FM, and on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District. You can also listen on 89.3 Lakes FM and watch online for our pregame coverage, beginning with this show at 6 o'clock, and Matt Catoni and I on the Laker pregame show at 6:30. Coach Hilbers, your final thoughts before we let you go this week and get ready for Southfield A&T on Friday?
we just want to have a good week. I know the kids are really excited and like they're amped up, and I just think that, like I said, they're a really good team. We know they're a really good team, but we're a good team too. We just hope that we're going toe-to-toe with them like we have the last few years, and we come out on top.
Very competitive matchups over the last few years, both here at West Bloomfield High School and on the road in Southfield. We'll get another big matchup on Friday night live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. That is going to do it for this week's edition of This Week in Laker Football. Come back next week and join us for the latest updates on the football team all season long. We'll recap Southfield A&T and look forward to Oak Park, plus look forward on the rest of the season and into playoff time. For our entire team at Civic Center TV and the West Bloomfield School District Athletic Department, I'm Tyler Kieft, thanking you for tuning in to This Week in Laker Football.